Hello, friends, colleagues, and followers. My name is Tate. I'm working with a company called New Zealand. And I have been in the New Zealand job market for 12 years, helping people find jobs in New Zealand. In the most recent years, I've been focusing exclusively on foreign placements because it's interesting and the value there is incredible and the need is incredible. So I find it very rewarding. Today, the topic I'm going to talk about include the scams and incompetence and greed that are factors affecting the New Zealand job market, and they specifically hurt foreigners because foreigners don't know what they're getting into. Another factor is foreigners trust Kiwis. And there's a reason for trusting Kiwis, but there's also a reason to watch out because sharks swim in waters where there's fresh meat, and we don't want to present too much of a victim presentation to those sharks. So what are the categories of problems that you'll find? It's basically coming down to incompetence and greed in the market. So there are aspects of incompetence and greed in every industry of the world. Employment industry is no different, and New Zealand is no different. It just all depends on scale. So the intensity of New Zealand may be less in some areas, but there's a lot of money available to people who scam really well and get your confidence and con you out of your money. So I'll show you some indicators of how that happens. It hurts me particularly to see this happening when I get calls from people that have already been scammed. And as we review the stories, I always find clear indicators that could have prevented that problem, that could have been seen if there was just a little bit more of a critical thought on the part of the person applying for that service. So with regard to incompetence, we'll normally see people that are engaging in a business and they're trying to do it without having any support, without having any experience in the job market. When I say experience, I mean understanding how things work right through to the actual event of being in a job interview and what happens internally with the decision maker on why certain decisions are decided. There's a reason for me analyzing it to that depth because there are values that can be given to people when they're involved in making a CV, when they're involved in presenting themselves to be considered for a role and having that dialogue and then being in the meeting itself. Knowing the other side helps. If you understand what are the motives of the hiring manager, there's some Kiwi-specific ones and there's some universal ones. These are things that I share with people as they go through the process. The lack of understanding with service providers, especially when they have no base at all with that aspect of the job market, in other words, getting hired, then all of their opinions is just heard from something else, maybe read from somewhere else. Social media circle spins out these ideas, and there's so many mistruths, half-truths, partial truths, and outright deceptive opposite of truths as well. And there's truth as well. So it's all mixed in. I'll help you discern some of that as we go through this. Another factor besides incompetence is greed. Now, whereas incompetence includes people that have sometimes a very honest desire to help. In other words, they might try to correct their mistakes. They might even admit their mistakes. Greed will not admit a mistake, and greed probably won't try to help. As long as the problem of making bad advice doesn't affect their money flow, they don't care because greed is the number one priority. Having that money flow is the number one priority. That's why they're there, and they know what they're doing. However, they're playing a short-term game. And they're also not so difficult to figure out if you know what to look for. They will always be there wherever big money is to be made. They'll always be fairly easy to figure out because their reputation will follow them and they will have no basis for their presentation. So what unifies these two? Those are the differences. What unifies them? Both of these characters in the job market, whether incompetent or greed, they will have that confident presentation and they will capture your mind and make you understand or make you feel, mostly feel, that they have the answers. Sometimes their information will be presented in such a way as, oh, this is too good to be true. I found the perfect one. Where was this person all my life? Watch out. That's probably a danger sign. Background check, basic things. Reputation. Do they have a website? No. Do they have a company? No. Watch out. Do they have a reputation in the market? Has anyone else given good advice about that specific kind of person doing that job, about that person or company doing that job? Look for these indicators. Have a little bit of an open mind, of course, because you're looking for a solution. But on the other hand, have a critical eye as well. The harm that can come from these events lead to lost time and money, psychological challenges, and there can be also detrimental risks to you and your family. So about the lost time and money, this can be very minimal or it can be very extensive, obviously. Depends on a number of factors. Hopefully you already sort out the good advice before you leave your home country and come into New Zealand, and you don't try to figure it out after you're in New Zealand, because then the clock is ticking and time is money, and more money is also a problem. So try to figure out the best plan you can before you even leave your country. That's the first thing. And background checking the right persons who give you advice is one way to make sure you're on the right track there. Also, harm that happens can be psychological damage. Now imagine you've been conned and you sort of get it. It's either incompetence or greed or lack of professionalism or something. Things aren't working out. And the project, the advice you're giving is wrong, so you're going to have to reverse. You're going to have to get some lost time and some lost money. That's a bit of a setback. Now, if you're having a setback early in your process, it can also delay you in feeling comfortable with the next steps of the process. So it's a bit of a reset required. Being positive, resetting, learning from the experiences and moving on is just one of those things that's going to happen, and each person's going to adjust in a different way. On the more serious side of what can happen with harm is that people can be affected detrimentally long-term. And this is really sad. And I've seen this a number of times from different angles. Incompetence can interfere with someone's ability to return to work in their home country. And sometimes this can lead to big problems. So if you don't have a way to return back, if you decide this is a one-shot deal, I'm just going to make it happen, all the more reason to be extra sure that you're doing it the right way with the right kind of advice and you have a good plan. Because sometimes the way people approach the market can be very hard to reverse and very hard to adjust to if it doesn't work out. So avoiding the worst case scenario is very important for people that have these all-in approaches, like I'm all in, I'm just going to make it happen. Well, if you're going to do that, start with the plan and make that happen first. One of the lower level scams that I find quite prevalent and common in the New Zealand job market is the CV money drive. So these guys are incredible. Every CV needs to be redone. I would like a test to be done. I would like to take someone's CV who's been already through this person, change the name and a few things, send it back to the same one, and see what they say, because I'm nearly certain there'll be a large percentage giving advice that it should be redone. I'm honest. I once heard of a guy, someone called me, he was in Wellington at the time, and he had already had his CV done 3 times. So the first time was himself, and he had it redone twice. And he wanted me to do it the 4th time. Why? Because he wasn't getting success. And, that's sad. I'm not making light of the situation. It's a sort of a funny topic to me, but it's not funny what happens. I mean, the poor guy, he's wasting time and money and focusing on a slice of the pie, right? There's a pie, and it is the presentation to the employer that results in a meeting that allows the employer to have a gut feeling, of intuition about this person in order to make a decision. Yes, he or she, in this case he's worth the risk. I see the connection, I see the fit, and now I'm ready to go because I've analyzed it in my mind. I feel it now that this person's in front of me. He's talking this decision happens like that. Does the hiring manager ever say, that was a fantastic CV and that's primarily why I'm going to make the hire? No, never. Doesn't happen like that. What are we doing with focusing on little components? It's only because someone has a money model, a business model based on that component. So just be aware of the incentives of different people involved. I'm not knocking people that are really good at it, but it is overdone. All right, without waiting any longer, let's get into the main list of things that are harmful for people when they enter the job market and get the wrong advice. Here's 4 examples of things that do hurt people. So one of them is, you have to be in New Zealand in order to get a job. No. Only people in the long-term shortage list can be successful. No. Only accredited employers can hire you. No. You need at least $80,000 to get a job. No. So why I say no to all these things, sometimes some of these things might apply to a certain profile. Yes, I agree. But when you say these things in a public forum and just expect that it's going to be, followed by people and then they're going to have success as a result, that's very dangerous. Don't do that. In the immigration industry or market or whatever, when you're an immigration, if you're not an immigration agent, and if you were to give this kind of advice regarding visas, there would be a $100,000 fine to pay, potentially, if someone has a problem with the advice you gave them and it resulted in harm to them. You'll be taken to a tribunal. Unfortunately, or just the way it is, there is no such tribunal for the job market. So it's up to you to be discerning and understand whether someone has real experience and abilities to communicate what is needed to get a job offer. So if they're saying this sort of things, just look at the background of them. These are 4 things that are not true for everyone. They might be true in some cases for people. I'll give you the example. You have to be in New Zealand in order to get a job offer. Just Friday, I got a call from someone who heard that a couple of times from recruiters who basically said it quickly to get off the phone. I know how it goes. I was in recruiting for many years. People sometimes get rushed. Sometimes they don't have time. They like sometimes to say the easy thing. And the easy thing is you have to be here in order to get a job. And that's a very dangerous truth. It's a part of a truth, but it doesn't tell the whole truth. Because being here, let's face it, a lot of people are here, but a lot of people aren't ready to get a job because they have no meetings. And they're not prepared to have meetings because they just haven't gone that far yet. So that's not the point of just being here. The point is knowing your strengths, aligning your strengths with needs, finding those needs, generating a meeting, making that happen, and lining that up at the meeting so that you've got a solid connection with a job opportunity. And when the employer feels that, there's a connection, and there's a Kiwi way to present that to local employers. And there are Kiwi market niches that are important to Kiwi employers that are not important to the immigration side, and vice versa. So in other words, the brain of the hiring manager and the needs, the demand of the hiring of the job market is not the same as a skills shortage list. Those are 2 different things. Skills shortage list indicates a lot of the times the same things, but also it doesn't indicate some of these things. The other mistruth, only accredited employers can hire you. Well, that's not true, obviously. There are 1,600 accredited employers compared to 500,000 New Zealand enterprises. Now, what do you want to choose from? Because remember, that 1,600 is not the target list. The target list that each industry specialization has is a segment of that. And some of those are very narrow. The other thing to remember is that people on the accredited list did not get that accreditation to hire foreigners, just as a general rule. They got that accreditation so that if they see the right employer, foreigner, they will hire that person quickly, more quickly than others. So it's a competitive advantage to have that privilege to be accredited, because you can offer something to a really high-level person that is in demand right now. But it doesn't mean they default to always hiring foreigners, right? In fact, the opposite is true. The same company that gets this accreditation to hire foreigners more easily doesn't mean they are only hiring foreigners. They're doing that for a reason strategically. It doesn't discount that everyone else from the other 500,000 companies out there, they can hire foreigners. I've seen cafes hire foreigners that resulted in residency. Does it mean I suggest to go that route? It doesn't mean. I have to look at each case independently. But there is that opportunity to go broadly, go into the market, and really explore the options of the whole market. Don't limit yourself. Why? So this is a really deceptive lie, and people spend their time on it. And well, let's not call it lie. Let's say it's either incompetence or otherwise. Maybe it's greed. I'm not sure what greed would have to do with that. It's much less opportunity. Another mistruth is that you need at least $80,000 to get a job. Now, this used to be heard quite often by me from about October when this new law came around, which affected a small segment of the people applying for work, right? So the larger segment, which is the point system, and I've had speakers on my webinar, and they've said it over and over again, you still have the point system. I'm paraphrasing about the point system, and that this is available to you, and it's online, and you can get right there what's the minimum. It's all published. There's no reason to be deceived about this. If anyone you hear, here's another indicator of incompetence, let's say, or worse. Another indicator is that if anyone says anything different than what the INZ website says, they're wrong, and they're incompetent, and they shouldn't be listened to. I'd like to just bring out just a few more examples of incompetent advice, just so that people can get, you all can understand a little bit more about identifying this. Maybe you'll see a pattern next time you hear someone say something. So here's one. I heard, you don't need a car to find work in New Zealand. Okay, let's hitch a ride. Or Uber or bus. I mean, imagine you visit a company, right? You leave the company. They call you and say, can you come back? What are you going to say? Oh, no, I'm on a bus and the next stop is, 2 hours away. Having the flexibility is very important to most people when they're here. Changing plans when plans need to be changed because it's driven by the market demand. That's very important. Whoever gives these kinds of advice, incompetence. You don't, another one, don't take the first job offer, wait for the one you deserve. Well, what if the first job offer is perfect for you? What if you've been looking for 3 months and, your flight is next week after that, and you finally get a job offer after a lot of efforts? It does happen. People are struggling out there to find work. Especially, there's a barrier as a foreigner. Sometimes people don't understand that the employer views hiring a foreigner as a barrier. There's a number of things that have to be adjusted. Firstly, there's the risk of not knowing. Just the same as you don't know what to expect in this culture, they don't know what to expect from you. It's less understanding. So they're going to have to adjust. They're going to have to figure you out, spend more time, investigate. Let's say they come up, yes, we're interested. They still have to invest more time because you're going to acclimate. You're going to be inducted for a longer period of time, trained up on things that everyone else sort of knows about the culture and the internal systems and things like that, the market, things like that, things that many people know. Most of the peers will be in the company, and they'll be New Zealanders in most cases. And a lot of them will be born in that city. They'll know everything. So there's a little bit of an adjustment culturally that should be adapted to. It's not to say it's going to be a big deal for everyone. It may not. But these are the things the employer has to think about. Are you representing your skills accurately? Well, how does he know? Well, the references. Well, the references are coming from a different country. There's an unfamiliarity. So these things, just take into account. Here's the easy way to do it. You're leaving your home country, right? You have a boss, let's say, right? So someone is your boss. Now you're leaving with skill set A. Okay, skill set A is your skill set. High skills, lots of competence and experience, all these qualifications and knowledge. You're leaving. Now, someone from New Zealand with skill set A, same as yours, is going to your home country and asking your boss, you know what? I'd like to have this job because I've got skill set A and it's perfect for me. Well, your boss in your home country is going to look at this foreigner who hasn't worked one day in your home country in a certain way. So put your mind into that mind and just have a think. What would your boss say seeing someone from another country with your skill set applying for your job after you leave, when the job is open, when the interviews are happening? What will that boss say? And that will help you empathize and understand some of the challenges that local employers have when foreigners come in. And that's why being a little bit careful around issues of feeling like there's too much demand for you and you should overplay your cards. You know, you don't want to overplay yourself. But this is the kind of advice that some people give to make you feel good. And why to make you feel good? To give you confidence in them. And why? So they can have your business and run you into the ditch. Unfortunately, it's not going to lead anywhere good because there's no basis of understanding of the process, what actually happens in the whole process of getting hired and being successful in the job. Another one, if you're overqualified, you can expect the same level of job here as you had in your home country. No, very rarely. It does happen, it's rare. Mostly you're going to have to go down a level or 2 or 3, and this is the more common thing. So that's just a fact for reasons I explained. Number 4 for this current list, as your employer, so one suggestion was to ask your employer in New Zealand to help you with accommodation, travel, meals, and the person was suggesting that this particular post was suggesting that the employer in New Zealand will do anything to help you. That is not true. That is rarely true. What is more often the case is the employer is expecting the foreign person to be maximally flexible and ready to adjust and make the life of this employer easy because he already has a list of things to adjust to, just because the person is not from the country. And again, you can check me on that by putting yourself in the mind of the employer. If someone was coming from a different country to your job, would the employer be ready just to do anything for someone on your skill set when you're coming here? So, just weigh this up. Yes, the demand here is stronger, but the people hiring will wear a bad decision like a heavy, wet coat in the winter. It will not feel good. It will drag them down. Everyone will know that they're wearing this coat in their business, in their company. And yeah, people do make mistakes in the hiring. It does happen, but people want to minimize it. It is an intense focus for them. So when you're being analyzed in 2 ways. In one side, the person interviewing is thinking, I can't make a mistake here. What could go wrong? What is my exit strategy if things do go wrong? And what indicators are there that this may not be working out right? The person's going to be clued into that. So just understand that that's an aspect of this process. On the other side, they're going to be looking at all of those opportunities with you, which is the positive side, all those skill sets you've got and how they match up and how you can immediately return value and then also potentially longer term return value. That's another angle that they'll be looking at. Look for people who understand these things and can give advice around these things, because as you run into trouble, you'll want answers. Yesterday, I got a phone call. I have a service called Help Support or something like that, Helpline on my website. You can see it there. I help people when they get into trouble. At least I try. And I'll always give free advice on the phone if you're genuinely in trouble. And we'll explore things along the way towards if there's something I can do for you. Now, currently, I'm still exploring with this person, and I'm not going to give away any information. I'm just going to tell you that there is a certain kind of a scam out there. So this person was scammed in the following way. Someone in New Zealand, we expect it's a Kiwi person, and this person has presented herself as being the wife of the director of a large New Zealand company that works in trades in a workshop environment. And this person was a manager in the workshop environment, actually a business owner. And the Kiwi person involved made some promises that were impossible to make. No one can make such promises. This person says that I'll guarantee you a job pretty much. I'll set up meetings for you and you will have a job. And this person charged $2,800 up front and justified that with promises and confidence. The presentation was very solid and confident. But there were indicators when I looked into it that this person had no website, no experience. So again, we see the same thing. Lack of experience combined with greed combined with bad advice, which goes together, all three of them. You get the first two, you're going to get the second one, bad advice. And lots of lost money and time. The poor guy came to New Zealand expecting to get the red carpet treatment, and guess what he got? He couldn't get answers on the phone call. He couldn't find this person anymore. Now that's devastating for someone who has to go back to their home country and, readjust to things. So this person called me, and we're in communication now, and I'll see what I can do. I see some potential here. Another funny thing I'd like to bring up at this point, I regularly do not accept money from people that want my help. And it's not because I say I'm not going to help you. It's because I explain I need to see a clear shot at success. Both of us need to see it, in fact, if we're going to do work together, because we both need to be positively pointed at a direction that we're moving towards. So help me get there, and we'll go. We'll do business. But I'm not there. And here's and I'll list the reasons why. So I delay decisions, and these delays often turn into no one paying me, where I could do as this person did, although with the basis, I've got the experience, but I've also genuinely care about having success with each engagement that I have. I want to give value every time. I genuinely do that. This is a lifestyle of mine that I've chosen. This is the way that I could just go on right through to retirement and be totally happy with this kind of a quality of life, helping others who are talented get into New Zealand. Employers want that talent. They can use it. The family benefits on the foreign side, the local side benefits on the skills side, and the society benefits because, culturally, it all works out. So I like being mixed into that. And that's my goal. That's my motivation. The money is added value for me. So when I hear these stories, I'm very grateful that I'm not in that game. But likewise, I'm very hurt that these sorts of people are sucked into this, and they're very trusting of Kiwis. It's often not their fault. They just don't have this discernment to look at the problems that could happen in Kiwi land because of the reputation that New Zealanders have, which is mostly well-deserved. But there are sharks around here because they smell big money, big easy money. Look, this woman presented herself in a certain way as the wife of this general manager of this significantly big company. And she presented that this is an easy way to get in and shortcut the actual hiring process, to shortcut it against immigration law, by the way. So this person could be in a whole lot of trouble if it comes to that. Not from me, but if someone were to bring it, it's not my issue. But if this person were to take it up, it could result in serious consequences for the person personally and for the company, if it can be connected to the company. So watch out. You want to, for two reasons. You want to help people out. That should be natural. And having no competence in giving advice is the wrong thing to do. And it's never going to amount to success long term. It's always going to amount to a lot of pain, learning experiences. And where is she after she collects the money with all these promises? She's not on her phone. So it took a few emails and a few promises, and that's it. $2,800 for what? How much total time? 2 hours? 1 hour? 3 hours? That's crazy. In conclusion, I just want to say that the obvious thing here is that bad advice can hurt if you take it on board and if you follow it. Not doing bad advice doesn't really require a whole lot of effort. You can just do a background check on the person. Have a look at what their experience level is. Have a look at how long they've been doing it and what level of intensity they've been doing it. How directly related was their tasks and their responsibilities to the hiring decision, and specifically with foreigners. Get as specific as you want. You might even go to the level of your industry. What experience do they have in your industry? In fact, I'd suggest have a look at that as well. You want to see a trail of success. You'll want to see experience on a level of years. One of the things that I've long said, way before this interview, I'm talking about 20 years ago, I've decided that 10 years is my benchmark for expert. So before I call someone an expert, I will always look at the 10-year benchmark. Now, if someone has been doing something with passion for 10 years, I'm not talking about people who are dispassionate for 10 years. I'm talking about people that engage themselves in an activity for 10 years, they're going to be an expert. That's my baseline benchmark to look at for expert. So you might just consider that. I mean, it can be 8, it can be 12, whatever. It can be 20. But 1 year is probably pretty light. Now imagine this. You've had a car accident. You're going to the hospital. There's a doctor available. Actually, there's 2. One doctor has 10 years of experience dealing with car accidents. The other one is not having that amount of time and maybe not even dealing with car accidents directly. Come on, let's get serious. You're going to pick the one that has the experience doing it hundreds of times because you want the person who has the most intense experience, who can make decisions on the spot and has seen a lot of stuff, learned a lot in the process, and learned on, unfortunately, other people in the beginning. But now it's come to you, and she's got a lot of experience. You can make up a lot of different examples of this. I mean, look at your own self, whatever example you have. I don't care if you're a welder, some sort of a manager, some sort of a teacher. Just look at yourself. Now, if you see someone who's been doing that, you've been doing it, I assume most of you, for a great number of years. Let's say it's 10 years. Now, do you consider yourself rather competent at a certain core set of skills? Of course you do. If you've been doing 10 or plus years, you definitely will have a core set of skills that you feel competent in. Now, let's say you meet someone who's been doing it for 6 months and they're telling you how to do the things that you're doing. You just laugh, right? That's crazy. What are you telling me how to weld? I know how to weld. You don't know how to weld. Why are you telling me how to weld? Okay. I think you get the idea. Besides looking at the background of someone, another way to find, you can find this on your own using social media. You can find people who have already found success in New Zealand. They already have a job. They have some path that they've been on, and they can explain to you what worked and what didn't work. You can learn from them. Rather learn from someone's mistakes and successes who's already done it before than invent the wheel yourself. So yes, advisors can be very useful. Yes, sometimes you can get the information at no cost. Why not go for that low-cost option anyway? Even if you decide to use an advisor, you might as well supplement your advice with someone who's gone through it. So rather than study just what everyone publishes online, because it's just a waterfall of confidence that comes from other people hearing from what other people said, go to the real results of someone that has actually experienced the exact same thing that you want. They're from your industry. They might be from your country. They come to New Zealand looking for a job, and they find a job. They go through a process. What process did they do? How did they do it? Let them figure it out for you. The same things you can apply, many of them, maybe not all of them, but many of them will apply. And you can learn from that process using the online, and that's no cost. I hope you have enjoyed this presentation. I've been sparked into action for this presentation because of what happened on Friday. So on Friday, I had this call from someone. He had a lot of trouble. I found out what it was, and we're still in process there. But it sparked my imagination. It's time for me to put this out. There are some sharks out there. Unfortunately, Kiwis are not immune from being a little bit greedy, in some cases very dangerously off base as far as the morals are really suspect, let's put it that way. And it does make my blood boil, and I shouldn't get angry about it, but I can't help it. I do actually care that things happen for people, and when I see innocent people with talent get harmed just because they trusted the wrong person, yeah, I don't like it. So I hope this helps you understand and discern the difference between good advice, bad advice. I hope you understand that there is a way to find good advisors and not good advisors, and see the difference and avoid the bad advice. I hope also you can discern the difference between some of the nonsense, a lot of the nonsense that comes like a waterfall through social media, and how to find that part of social media that can help you. Just go to the source again. Go to someone who has had exactly your experience as close as possible. Mine them for information, especially someone who's recently been there. They'll have the freshest information, and they'll be most passionate to share the information with you.